The 84th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
And ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma.
With 20 seconds left to play. Goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good. 63-62. 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Fred Brown looking. Oh, way to Worthy. Worthy 5. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship.
Rebounded by Weber. Michigan out of timeout. Weber front court. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. They're out of timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul. Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out to head. Long outside shot. Short rebounded. There. It's over. Carolina has won the national championship. How about them Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
That's it! Make room for 2017. The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
This is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Joshua Marlowe.
Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We're powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony, we are back after a eventful and busy Thanksgiving week for both Carolina football and Carolina basketball. Carolina was down in the Bahamas, the battle for Atlantis, a prestigious holiday tournament that this year was probably more loaded than Maui. You had 4 teams ranked in the top 13 competing in this event. We knew it was going to be a challenge for Carolina, knew that more importantly we were going to learn a lot about this year's team and what kind of team they can be moving forward, and we did learn just that. We learned a lot about this team in the short term and what this team can be in the long term. And Anthony, it started off in the Alabama game in the opening round of the Battle for Atlantis. And really it was a game where Carolina, I think they won because they're just better. They have more talent than the Crimson Tide right now because they didn't play particularly well, but they did enough to get the win and move into the winner's bracket of the Battle for Atlantis on Wednesday.
I mean, they didn't play their best basketball, but they didn't play awful either. Garrison Brooks, phenomenal day, 20 points, 7 rebounds. The headliner was probably Armando Becato, 12 points, 15 rebounds. The big guys did work. We thought that could be something that we could see against Alabama. And, I think that game kind of showed what we were all thinking heading into Atlantis was the only way this team's going to win games here is if they get the ball inside because the shooting is not there. And it was that way against Alabama. Now, it helped that you had Brandon Robinson come back in and hit 3 threes. That was huge. He looked really good in his return. But overall, it was kind of one of those games where, you felt like Carolina was in control of the game, but at the same time, every time that you felt like you were getting ready to pull away from Alabama, they would hit a 3. John Petty Jr., huge game for him. Kira Lewis Jr., nice performance as well. It was just one of those weird games where Alabama really didn't play all that great, but because the Tar Heels couldn't shoot the basketball well enough, that they were able to establish a huge lead. You felt like as the game went along, the commentators were saying it. I mean, they put together a run. Alabama's right back in it. So, again, kind of what we've seen for most of the year from Carolina. I think the only encouraging thing was they started out a little bit hot from the field, but then kind of fell off as the game went along. But overall, just, I think you're right. Talent was the reason that Carolina won this game against Alabama.
Yeah, you mentioned getting the ball inside. Carolina got 40 points in the paint. That's always been a recipe for success for Roy Williams and Carolina basketball, but more so this year because it's not like in years past where you had guys on the wing that can shoot 38, 39% from three. We don't have that. You mentioned also Brandon Robinson making his season debut. Actually started in the game. And even though he wasn't great, 4 of 11 from the field was 3 of 6 from three. The biggest thing that he does is he helps space the floor because it's a guy that – because teams weren't having to worry about Christian Keeling stepping out and shooting three-pointers. Teams were wanting him to shoot the ball because he is struggling.
They have to worry about him shooting it. They just don't have to worry about him making it at this point.
And so with B-Rob, he led the team last year in three-point percentage. Also, it wasn't limited attempts, but he just makes – the offense a little more space, makes life a little bit easier for Cole Anthony, also makes the life easier for the big guys, and that's why Garrison Brooks was able to have a career-tying day in terms of his points, and Armando Bacot. I was really interested to see coming into this tournament because he had back-to-back double-doubles against Elon and Gardner-Webb. Well, does that carry over? And he started out with that in the Alabama game, 12 and 15, phenomenal game for him, as he had a phenomenal tournament all week long down in the Bahamas. When you look at the numbers for Carolina, only 41% from the field, 36% from three. They were 62% from the foul line. They've now played 7 games, and I'll throw this out there, they have yet to shoot 50% in any game this year.
Yep.
And they have yet to score 80 points in a game this year. The 80 points is the first time since 82 they've started a season 7 consecutive games or longer without scoring 80. And the 50% field goal percentage goes all the way back to 1959.
Yeah, it's I mean, we were talking about this, and I mean, we'll kind of talk about it as we go along through the other games as well. This Tar Heel team, frankly, just cannot shoot. It's really that simple. There's nobody on this team right now that you're going to say, okay, if I need a bucket late in the game, I can put it in their hands, and I'm thinking they're definitely going to make it. And that's kind of scary. Maybe that guy is going to emerge at some point. It looks like your best opportunity is probably going to be B-Rob. I mean, Cole Anthony, he is what he is. I mean, there's a lot of people that, are saying, oh, he's just trying to do too much and everything like that. I mean, at this point,
doesn't have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, what choice does he really have if he doesn't step up and play all that well for this Tar Heel team? We've seen when he struggles, this Tar Heel team looks totally different. But I think that maybe that solution is coming. Who knows? Maybe it's Anthony Harris. We don't know how good of a shooter he really is as well. I mean, because we could say, oh well, we go back and watch the highlight tapes from high school. We do that. Andrew Platek would be the best shooter on this team. And he was god-awful. Not in this game, but in the game we'll talk about a little later. I actually thought this was one of his better games, was Alabama. Came in, only scored 4 points, but I thought took care of the basketball, made a couple of really nice passes to the guys inside, and gave the Tar Heels some pretty sizable minutes. But the only other thing that I really wanted to mention about this game, you talked about B-Rob coming back and what kind of effect it had on the offensive end. I thought just from a leadership perspective, it was a lot different. You could tell because Cole got into some foul trouble, was kind of playing a little out of control, throughout that game. That was really the first time where he looked like he was, kind of trying to, push the tempo a little bit too much and stuff like that. But B-Rob was the guy that came over and would, settle him down and say, okay, let's keep our head in the game, everything like that. I think also on the defensive end, B-Rob is a more willing defender. I think we've seen Christian Keeling become more willing over the last couple of games because he realizes that his shot is not falling. So he's got no choice but to, try to make something happen on the defensive end. But I think that was huge for Carolina to have a leadership presence like Brandon Robinson back in Atlanta.
Yeah, they need that in the backcourt when they get when the schedule got to this part where we knew from pretty much here on out, there's no such thing as a cupcake.
Yeah,
I've compared what they went through starting in Atlantis and what they're about to go through this week. It's tougher than any stretch possibly during all of ACC play, which is just ridiculous when you think about how loaded and how deep the
end
ACC
of the schedule,
can be.
The end of our ACC schedule every single year. Put it up.
It's
remember,
right there.
We had this debate when we did the schedule breakdown. Is this area of late November, early December a tougher stretch than that close to the season? And I mean, it's looking like it at this point. Yes, it definitely is.
The biggest stat of this whole game, and it's really why, and more so than the Carolinas talent while they won.
I was going to let you have that.
They out-rebounded the Crimson Tide 60-31.
Somebody said it was also, I don't know, if they missed one on here or maybe on television if they got it. I think it was maybe Jimmy Dite. No, I think it might have been Dick Vitale in the Michigan game said that it was 61-31.
Yeah.
So
regardless,
30, even more impressive.
They pounded the glass against a team that they should have pounded the glass. When we previewed Alabama, we noticed that they weren't a very good rebounding team as a whole, but Carolina took advantage of that. Think about, the Notre Dame game and the Alabama game. They have pounded those two teams on the glass, and it's why they've been able to overcome shooting in the low 40% from the field, mid 30% from three, and leaving a lot of empty points at the foul line. So it was a good, solid win to start the tournament. They moved on to play Michigan, and this was the third straight year we've played the Wolverines.
Yeah, I don't want to play them anymore.
And they've
I'm tired of them.
They're turning into that team that Carolina just does not match up well against.
Oh, so Texas.
They're the Texas of the Big Ten. The interesting thing I took from this game was Carolina started relatively well. They seemed to be in a really decent flow offensively. And it was like once Michigan settled into the game, they looked night and day better than Carolina.
Oh, I mean, you had that stretch early in the second half that changed the whole game. 19-0 run, you knew that was pretty much going to be it. But, I mean, that was just Michigan creating turnovers, forcing rushed and very poor shots from Carolina. Very bad shot choice throughout the night for Carolina. And, I mean, they just took advantage. I mean, there were times where this team wasn't even running back defensively. And that was when you knew that there was a problem. Now, the good thing is that you get down 60-36 and you fight your way back into the game to at least have a chance late to make things interesting. They cut it to as close as 8. So that was the encouraging part in this game for me, because when that timeout was called by Roy, which the fact that we're even saying that on the podcast should give you concern that he's calling timeouts.
Right.
I think, that was when at home you're sitting there and you're realizing this is not what we thought was going to happen in this game. Now, the good news is that, Michigan went on and won the tournament, okay? Michigan's a very, very legit basketball team. They were a team that was ranked, pretty much the reason that they were ranked outside of the top 25 to begin the season and still early on in the season is because of who their head coach is because Juwan Howard is a rookie head coach. They took the voters did not even remotely take into account that this is one of the older teams in the entire country. These guys have been there for a while. Most of the key guys were on the national championship team. They just didn't play a whole lot. Look, they've been there for a long time. They know what, the style that Michigan's going to play. Juwan Howard hasn't changed anything. And, it looked like a really bad loss on paper. But the thing is I think part of it is that Carolina is not quite as good as we thought. But I also think part of it is that Michigan is a hell of a lot better than we thought they were going to be.
Yeah, they jumped after beating Carolina and Gonzaga down in the Battle for Atlantis. They go from unranked to 4th. They actually play the number 1 team in the country tonight in the ACC Big Ten Challenge.
What a joke.
And
the polls are. People.
Yeah, just a team that They know who they are. Juwan Howard has instilled some more pro sets into the offense because he's been in the NBA for as long as we've been alive for just about. But their efficiency in the half court is something that I have always admired. When John Beilein was